there that I thought made it fairly easy for us just to look at. The first day of creation. Uh, well, let me back up and say there are three things that happens in creation in the Bible. If you'll notice in that first chapter, God speaks, God makes, and God divides. He's doing those three things. In the first line there it says, in the beginning, God. And God created the heavens and the earth. So God, the first thing He did was speak creation into existence. And we have there, the first thing happening on that first day was dividing the light from the darkness. The light of God. Not talking about the sun and the moon and stars there. It's talking about the light of God that brought light into the universe and divided that from the darkness. And then again, God speaks in verse 2, and He is, in day 2. And in day 2, He's parting and separating the water from the sky. People get caught up with that verse 2 there when it says, the earth was without form and void. And I mentioned that the other week, that people talk about the gap theory and things like that. But there is another translation of the Hebrew words form and void. Tohu wa bohu is the Greek, and it can be translated form and void, which we have in most of our Bibles. But another good translation of that is desolation and waste. So God created the heavens and the earth. He created these, but they were desolate, couldn't support life. And that's what it's talking about in verse 2. And I believe that's the way most theologians are going, instead of trying to build in billions of years there. That God created the earth and it was desolate, it was barren, and it was just like any other planet you would see in the universe. But then God started to move on the earth, and by verse 3, God is separating the earth from the seas, and He's making the vegetation to grow on the earth and in the earth. So those three verses as we begin there, God is creating. God said in verse 3, let there be light, and there was light, and God saw the light that it was good. He divided the light from the darkness, and then God called the light day and the darkness night. So the evening and the morning were the first day. And then God said, let there be a firmament in the midst. That's in verse 6. It's the second day of creation, And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and divides the waters. And thus God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above. And that is, like I said, separating the water from the sky and the atmosphere, if you will. And then God, in verse 8, God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear. And so it was. And the dry land God called the earth, and gathered together the waters He called seas, and God saw that it was good. God said, and this is still in the third day, let the earth bring forth the grass and the herbs and the trees according to its kind, and the seed is in itself, and it was so. And the earth brought forth the grass and herbs, and yielded seed according to its kind. And the tree yields fruit, whose seed is in itself. So the evening and the morning were the third day. So that brings us down to the third day. And as we see there, God's creating the earth, and the waters, and the dry land appears, and the vegetation on the earth. And then the change comes again there in day 4, when God begins to fill His creation that He has created. He creates the moon and the stars, and then on day 5 He creates the sea creatures and the birds. Day 6 He creates the creatures, the land creatures, and then finally we'll see He creates the human beings. So I'll begin again there after day 3. So the fourth day God said, let there be lights in the firmament And he divided the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons and days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. And so it was. And he made two great lights, one to rule the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He also made the stars and set them in the firmament in the heavens to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and divided the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. So the evening and the morning were the fourth day. So now God has created all of those things that are necessary for life to be on the earth. The vegetation, he's created the sun and the moon, the seasons, the stars. All of the planets are set in motion, and God's universe is coming together. On the fifth day then, God said, let the waters have abundance of living creatures, and let the birds fly above the earth across the face of the firmament of the heavens. So God created the sea creatures, and every living thing that moves, which is in the waters, abounded according to their kind, every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, fill the waters of the sea, and the birds multiplying on the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. There is the first 5 quickly days of creation, where God is speaking, God is making, and God is speaking into creation. God is making things out of his creation, in his creation, and he is dividing his creation, the things that he has made through his creating process. Anything y'all want to add there? I know everybody studied the days of creation, and I just wondered if there's anybody got any other insights or ideas that you have studied along those lines. Of course, like I said, the main thing is God creating is different from God making. We know that from verse 1, God created ex nihilo, from nothing. We serve a creator God. I think God is continuing. As a matter of fact, I know God is continuing to create, because he's a creator, and the further they go out in space, they see new stars, they see new galaxies that they've never known before, and we serve a creator God. What has God created on earth since this first, let's say, 6 days of creation? I'll just throw a question out there. Has God continued to create in the earth since then? Well, that's another one of those, he sent his son into the world, and Jesus is part of the creation. And so Jesus has created the church, and he is continuing to create the church. And right now he's creating a place, a new heaven and a new earth that we will see when this earth passes away. So just a tidbit there. Let me continue on to verse 6, or day 6, and then we'll stop and talk about some of this. And then God said in verse 24, let the earth bring forth the living creatures according to its kind, the cattle, creeping things, and the beasts of the earth, each according to its kind. And so it was. And God made the beasts of the earth according to its kind, the cattle according to its kind, and everything that creeps upon the earth according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle of all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the face of the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female he created them. And then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living creature. And God said, see, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of the whole earth, every tree whose fruit yields its seed. To you it shall be for food. Also every beast of the field, and every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps upon the earth in which there is life, I have given every green herb of food. And so it was. Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was good, very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. That is the 6 days of creation, kind of quickly put. And I wanted to get to the sixth day because that's why I was rushing through that. It says there in verse 26, 22, 23. Did the plants and animals die before the fall? What do you think? We know that after the fall, death came in, but did plants and animals die before the fall? I say both. Well, that's what I'm getting at, because there's no answer to the question. I think it's both and. I don't think the animals died. They were to procreate, just like humans were to procreate. But it says that every seed shall yield according to its kind, after its kind, and that speaks to us of that regeneration of the plants and of the trees and of the herbs and all of those things which man was to consume. So those things, I believe, did have that cycle of nature that God had begun, and the leaves would fall and they would die and they would be replenished. But I don't think, I'm sure most theologians would agree that animals did not die until after the fall. So that leads me to another question, and we'll get into this more in chapter 2 and chapter 3. If nothing died and only the leaves and the trees were being regenerated, when God said, "You shall surely die when you eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil," did Adam understand what death was? Have you ever thought about that? Did Adam really know what God was talking about? We don't have an answer to the question, but I don't believe, and it's been brought up in some readings I've seen, but I don't believe that God would ever command us anything or tell us anything without us having the understanding of it. I'm not sure how Adam understood, unless he understood from the regeneration of trees and the cycle of nature, that there was death, there is such a thing as death, or was it a concept that God told him about, or God himself explained to him that he would die? So we don't know, and like I said, those are questions out there that no one can answer. But when you hear them sometimes from people who are asking you all kind of crazy questions, you have to just say, well, we've talked about that. And I had another question come up just recently. Was there a hell before the fall? That one's more obvious, I think. Theologians don't believe that there was, because there was no need for hell. Even though Satan came into the garden, at some point God did make that place for the devil and his angels. We don't know when that was and when its existence started. And so those are questions that are out there, and you can kind of just say, yeah, we've talked about that before. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I really believe that we don't have that dispersion of the human race until the Tower of Babel. And I think there is, don't tend to use the word evolution, but I think in our separation throughout the earth at the Tower of Babel, people took on different characteristics according to where they lived on the earth. I think you could say they've changed or looked differently, but I think that was where we began to be differently. Our kind is the same kind. We're human beings, and that's what God's getting at here, and especially with the animals. The dogs, cats are different, and then whales are different, and then horses and cows are different. So. Mm-hmm.